Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by...
Scott, there's a new Witcher game!
There's a new Witcher game! There's apparently going to be a whole Witcher saga. Now, it's, as of 5 minutes ago, the official Witcher account tweeted out a new piece of artwork right there. Looks very, very sweet. And if you click the link, the website's down because everyone's running to the website to try and get more details on it. But thankfully, we're on the CDPR press release thing, and they sent us it anyway. So, this is a new saga of Witcher games. It's not just an announcement for the upscaled version of The Witcher 3 running on PS5, Series X or whatever. It is the next, whatever the next main installment in the Witcher series is. And even more tantalizing is the fact that they're making a switch to Unreal Engine 5. Now, if you've seen any of the various Unreal Engine 5 demos doing the rounds, that thing is absolutely gorgeous, an insane piece of tech. And included in the press release is CDPR saying that until this point, they always used their own game engines. So it will be a departure from the way that The Witcher 3 worked.
Fascinating.
First time they've done a contractual thing with an outside party in this way, which is also interesting in that regard because The Witcher 3 was buggy as hell. Roach was flying all around the place across Wild Hunt. But what do you think of the old new saga?
Well, I mean, they were never going to give up on The Witcher, will they? The Witcher is such a profitable series, both in games and now outside of games, with the likes of the TV show. Obviously, it's based on a very popular book series as well. So this was never going to happen. However, Scott, I did not expect an announcement or even an acknowledgement of an announcement right now because
At 4:45 in the afternoon.
I was literally going home
on the way home, to be honest.
Stay and brush my teeth or something now. Got my night bag, so that's all right.
There's a lot of content to be done.
I didn't expect the announcement right now coming after so soon, in fact, after Cyberpunk. And as far as excited as I am, I wonder how much this is kind of like to get a surefire bet kind of in the sights on the roadmap for their company to be like, look, there is a Witcher on the way, don't worry.
Do you think that's the thing? Do you think they've been waiting until they could get Cyberpunk back to being stable, and then whoever made this piece of artwork's just been sitting on it for about 2 years at this point?
Maybe. I mean, you could be entirely right there because this does come like a month after they dropped the next gen update for Cyberpunk, which kind of essentially finished that game, in a way that should have been 2 years ago.
In regards to Cyberpunk, there was always rumblings of more Witcher, like Josh says. It was something they were never going to abandon, and they did mention in various investors' calls that they think of the Witcher franchise as one of the pillars of the company, and it was always that thing going forward where it was going to be Witcher stuff and Cyberpunk stuff. Now, obviously, Cyberpunk's future is all over the place. It seems like they've largely ditched the multiplayer component. When asked about it, they just said, look, we don't know. That was something that we were planning on doing, and obviously they had to spend so much more time getting Cyberpunk to work, and Cyberpunk's just kind of over there now. So I wonder if they're just front-loading all the marketing, front-loading the optics of the company with Witcher stuff, because 2015 CDPR were flying so high. And The Witcher 3 is obviously one of the greatest games of all time, one of the best open world games of all time, one of the best things you can do with your time of all time. And I guess that's the thing. What do you want from a new Witcher saga? Because they're getting out there immediately saying it's a whole new saga. They also said Geralt's story was done across the 2 pieces of DLC that Witcher 3 got.
It being a saga is incredibly tantalizing. I want to know what route they go down with that. But from like sort of gameplay perspective, I'm excited to see what they're going to do to innovate, because there are big jumps in quality and kind of ambition. If you go from The Witcher 1, which was obviously kind of very scrappy, very underdoggy, like this RPG that didn't quite fully come together but had a lot of limitations. Number 2 was like a big stride forward, and number 3 obviously was this big AAA blockbuster that went open world and did like so much and started competing on the level of Skyrim. To me, it's like, do we see another jump of that caliber, or do we see essentially The Witcher 3 2? Because I wouldn't mind The Witcher 3 2, but you have to imagine that this is going to be a few years out yet.
Well, the thing is, like, it's interesting in regards to where the open world space is at, because there are big open world parts of The Witcher 2, but like you said, it's a bit more linear, to use a term for it, and there's a big branching path bit in that game where you pick which half of the game you want to play. But The Witcher 3, was one of those games that sort of pioneered the whole, here's a question mark, here's a thing, go hoover up this whole world in whatever order you want, and it wasn't as icon-filled as an Assassin's Creed or an Ubisoft template or what's now become the Sony formula, but I feel like they straddle quite a nice line between sheer discovery and waypointing and telling you where to go. So I wonder, now that we've had Elden Ring, now that we've had the likes of Immortals, Phoenix Rising and whatever, I wonder, or Breath of the Wild, I wonder what they do, how much of how much Elden Ring is going to be in The Witcher 4, basically,
well,
or whatever the Witcher thing turns into.
I am more interested in how much of Cyberpunk is going to be in The Witcher 4, because when that game worked, I really enjoyed it. But its approach to open world game design, infamously, for better and mostly for worse, was more inspired by the likes of GTA and stuff, where you had all of these icons, all of these things to do, all of these kind of errands to run, whether you were just stopping petty crimes or what have you. That thing was packed in. More than The Witcher 3, in my opinion. Like you said, The Witcher 3 was kind of more exploration driven, at least I think. You
just
had the
question marks.
You had the question marks. You didn't necessarily know what you were. You were invited to kind of look. And I know Cyberpunk had it, but to me it was way more of the Ubisoft mold, if that makes sense. So I am fascinated to see how they react to that, considering that The Witcher 3 was such a pioneer in the open world space. Like, if you look at a lot of Sony's first party open world games, like, they're incredibly inspired by The Witcher 3. Even Assassin's Creed now, has so much of The Witcher 3's DNA in it.
Oh god, yeah.
That kind of formula has become standardized in a lot of ways. So yeah, in response to the likes of Breath of the Wild, in response to Elden Ring, how do they shake it up? Because for what issues CD Projekt has, they are great at building a world.
Well, the thing that's interesting,
packing it with stuff.
That's the thing. Witcher 3's overall world, and especially when you first get to Velen, it has such a specific feel. Skellige has such a specific feel, and it's interesting because a lot of the, or some of the key figures behind The Witcher 3 have left CDPR. They left during Cyberpunk's development, and I wonder if any of those people come back. Because I remember watching a documentary about even they thought about the literal topography of the land itself. They would want to make it so that a village was next to a stream, and there was fish in that river. You would make sense why the village was living off that stream. They thought of all those things. It made perfect sense in that regard, ecological sense or whatever. So I question what a next generation Witcher looks like when it's made on Unreal Engine 5, which is something that
it's crazy.
We've not seen Unreal 5 fully been fleshed out yet, but I hope that solves the technical side of it, because Witcher 3 was dogged by a lot of bugs at launch, but also that maybe takes the impetus away from our putting so much influence on or interest into making sure the game is smooth. They can just go, well, the engine's solid, we can do everything else instead.
True.
There's no mention of platforms, but assumedly it'll be on next gen consoles. I would hope exclusively.
You have to think.
I really hope that CDPR just go, well, we've got access to Unreal 5, it's the Witcher mythos, let's do an actual full next-gen thing.
Well, again, for better or worse, CD Projekt RED has almost been defined on trying to create technologically pushing games. You look at The Witcher 1, you look at The Witcher 2 especially, which was a PC powerhouse back in the day. Obviously, The Witcher 3 was very kind of pushing the limits in terms of its tech. So to get an engine like that, like you say, that hopefully kind of just works, and they can build up the foundations off of to avoid the issues that plagued their previous games. Hopefully that's a step in the right direction. However, I come to the question of...
Go on.
We are obviously very excited right now doing this news. It's the end of the day, a new Witch has been announced. Obviously, that's exciting. However, for me personally, after the Cyberpunk fiasco, I'm not going to suddenly start saying that it's a surefire bet. The Witcher 4 is going to be amazing just because The Witcher 3 was. To me, I'm at a position right now where they have to prove themselves to me yet again. They just do, man. I
know.
They're in a position where they don't have the goodwill that we gave them for so long for the Cyberpunk years. And I'm like, right, I love The Witcher. I like CD Projekt RED in theory. I want them to be back where they were, but I need to see proof that this isn't going to be another Cyberpunk.
Yeah, that's an extremely valid point. That I think the artwork is cool. Everyone loves The Witcher. Whatever. I've read the books and everything else. There's a lot of fan love in there. But yeah, massively valid. It can't be overstated how much they dropped the ball and then sat on it when it came to Cyberpunk, and how long that game took to just be in a remotely sellable state as it should have been back in 2020. It's interesting though in regards to the staff that were responsible for that, the individual figureheads, the likes of Adam Badowski, who was highlighted in the various behind-the-scenes reports, and the fact that the devs and the art department and everyone were just saying this game needs 2 more years. And now you look at the version of Cyberpunk that's in 2022, and it's the one that should have come in 2020. That's not to excuse anything, but I wonder, or I have to hope, rather than wonder, that they've learned from that, and that the various coding departments have the sway to say, remember Cyberpunk? Let's never do that again. And let's compare and contrast with The Witcher 3. I also hope that The Witcher 3 is getting its next gen update, because on the PC, I think it's just a PC mod, but there's a photo mode in there. The game looks gorgeous, and I think that it will be a nice twofer. If they might have tweeted it right now for all we know. We're in this room, but they should do something with The Witcher 3 in the moment, just to sort of go by the way, guys, we used to be good and incredible, and here's why.
I think that's going to hold us over, because I imagine just based on this announcement, based on the artwork, based on the tentative kind of trickle of information that we've just got.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily going to be a Cyberpunk situation when that was announced in like 2012. It was 2012. It was before Witcher 3.
The original teaser was.
Yeah. I don't think it'll take as long as that, but I can't imagine we're getting this for another 4 years or something, if not longer. So the Witcher 3 remaster that has been promised, like that will be a nice stopgap, and hopefully they just take the time to get it right. You know, I'm not expecting this thing to drop next year, the year after, even the year after that. I think it's going to be a long time coming, but like you said, I don't think a company of this size, of any size, can make the Cyberpunk mistake twice. No. I just feel like they've got to take that on board. They know they're fighting an uphill battle, and hopefully they just take the time that is needed to do justice to this brand.
Yeah, I think that like the whole idea of signing with Epic and doing the Unreal Engine 5 thing should free up some level of production that means this maybe doesn't take years and years to come. Like with Death Stranding, you know, like Kojima went ahead and used the Decima engine, Guerrilla helped with that stuff, and it meant that Death Stranding was turned around, I think, almost entirely in about 3 years.
Yeah.
Either 3 or 4 years. There's a whole timeline Kojima put out on Twitter, but it points to a potential version of the game that we're not, a potential release of the game that doesn't take the rest of the generation to actually appear. But who knows?
I'll believe it when I see it.
Exactly, believe it when you see it. But for right now, potential excitement, and hopefully we'll not get too carried away in regards to what we did with all the Cyberpunk stuff. But let us know what you think down in the comments below of the idea of a new Witcher saga. What do you want to see? Custom Witchers, more Geralt somehow? Let us know. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.